Hey, everybody, and welcome to our next CEO interview. I'm Jason Nazar, the co-founder and CEO of Comparably, and this is an interview series we do in conjunction with Comparably and Entrepreneur Media. And I'm really happy to have my friend here today, the CEO of Acorns. Hey, Noah.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm great and been really looking forward to this conversation. You're one of the folks that I think has built just such an amazing consumer brand, is helping so many folks, and someone that our brief interactions, I feel like I've gotten to learn a lot from. And I know so many people are going to benefit from this today. For those of you joining us for the first time, this is a series that we do with incredible CEOs like Noah Kerner here. And we're going to be talking about If I Knew Then lessons. So if we could go back in time and have a conversation with what are the things that we'd want to pass on? What do we want to pass on to the folks that we work with, that we're trying to help, and the communities that we're a part of? I'm, again, the co-founder and CEO of Comparably, and we're a platform to help make workplaces more transparent, to improve company cultures. Amazing to see companies like Acorns on there with incredible feedback that you've gotten from your team. And we do this series really to just kind of give back to anyone coming up in their career who's looking to be an entrepreneur, who's looking to build out their skills as a leader. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started and sold some companies and a pretty active investor and board member here in Southern California. Noah reminded me this morning how much cooler he thinks it is to be on the East Coast, even though I'm an 80-degree temperature, and I'm not sure he gets the benefit from as much sun right now. But that aside, just so happy to have someone that I know I'm going to learn a lot from today, and all of us. And so, Noah, I think so many of us are already, users and customers of Acorns. But, in your own words, please describe how you talk about the business today.
I will, but one thing before we start about the East Coast, West Coast. I'm from the East Village in New York City, and in fairness, I have lived in LA for 5.5 years, and it's not an obnoxious comparison. It's a comparison through real life experience, and the East Village, New York City, every day of the week. All right. So Acorns really helps everyday Americans save and invest for a better future, easily, without friction, and like we focus on the customer segment that is sort of like 50,000 to 75,000 household income. It's right in the median of American household income. Geographically, we're really penetrated across America, so like you don't see us over-indexing in any market, which is something we're really proud of. 60% of our customers are first-time investors. That's also something we're really proud of. Right, these are people and people for the first time in their family's history who have started investing. And the thing I think to understand best about us is that we are really all about helping people save and invest for the long term. This is not about spending, trading, borrowing. This is about building a better life and future for yourself and your family.
Yeah. And, I'm really excited to hear about, where Acorns is today as a business, where you're going. I think one of the things that was so creative that you all did is, right, I think you invented this concept of just, let's make it so easy for people to invest in their future. We're going to take, what they're already spending money on. We're going to round up, the fractional remaining of that change. It's going to go into their savings accounts. It's going to go in the stock market. Talk about, what you felt like got Acorns off the ground early on, like amongst so many different financial products for consumers. What was that lightning in a bottle that you struck that today 8 million people are, using your product?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about saving and investing for the future, it's not exactly a thing, right? It's not, and it's not something that has immediacy attached to it. Like transferring money may have immediacy, or transacting in the moment may have immediacy, or trading a stock today that may have. Saving and investing for the future, that's a long-term commitment. And getting people to think about that, getting people to think past the day, the week, the month, the year is a hard thing. It's a hard thing for all of us, especially people who may be struggling, right? You're trying to get by day to day. So the product had to have an aspect to it that connected to things you do every day. which is where the roundup comes into play, right? Because so investing your spare change from every purchase, every time you shop, rounding it up, making, that connects it to the here and now more so. So I think that's a really important piece of it, right? Even still, you have to get people thinking about the long term, because 25 cents is not enough. Like, you need to do 25 cents every purchase, and then you want to add, if you can, a couple bucks a day or a couple bucks a week or whatever. We were really early in mobile, and that was important, right? Because it's right there in your hand. It's really simple. It's accessible. So I think that had a bunch to do with it. And we built the product, the design of the product, even, continued to today. It's inviting, it feels good. The brand is about nature. It sort of connects on a little bit of a primordial level. And then, anybody who doesn't factor luck, timing, those things is full of shit. So.
All right, we're going to spend a bunch of time talking about Acorns. I think one of the things that stood out in our conversations is just like how much entrepreneurial DNA was in you from the very beginning. There's lots of different origin stories of how people got into this, but let's talk about like your career arc a little bit. Like, did you, it feels to me from our conversations, like from a very young age, you knew that you were going to be running your own business, that you were going to be charting your own course. Like, was that the case? And if so, like, where do you feel like it came from?
Yeah. Well, I grew up around a very feisty mom who got fired from 7 jobs. So I think that example for me was like, you're probably going to need to do your own thing because you got the same genes. And out of necessity, if you want to survive, you're going to probably have to have your own thing or run your own thing or whatever, because I was a stubborn kid. I'm still stubborn. I was impatient. I'm still impatient. My mother, there was no circumstance, moment, or person who could stop my mother from speaking her mind. And she said, she said it as she saw it. I'm the same way. I think that's important, say it like you see it. Try to do it respectfully, but say it like you see it. New Yorkers say it like they see it. Not always respectfully, but, so I also kind of grew up around that. I don't know. I had a little bit of a natural curiosity early on. Like I was one of those kids, like I was a competitive tennis player. I was a public school kid. Well, first of all, I was a public school kid. So I grew up around like kids who had like parents who hustled and stuff like that. Right. I was a competitive tennis player. I was always really competitive. I started playing tennis tournaments at 8. So I was doing that. And then I loved hip hop culture and sports. That was like my childhood. And I started collecting baseball cards really early. And then, the natural thing there is you get into the metrics and the numbers and like the stats and all that shit. And then I started selling baseball cards. So that was early. I don't really know exactly where that came from. I think it was just, you're just a sort of like it had to do with the surroundings and the environment of New York. Is the city is always alive and never sleeps. And you walk around, people playing card games on the streets and 3-card Monte, and like, there was just always stuff happening around you. So there was this vibrance and like, right. And then 14 years old, it was drums or turntables for my birthday. And I chose turntables because I was a hip hop kid. And I loved DJ Premier and DJ Scratch and all the world DJ competitions. And my friends all thought I was going to be whack and like that there was no hope, which, by the way, was the greatest motivation for me. Like, if you tell me I'm going to suck at something, that's great. I'll see you in 2 years. So every night for like 4 hours, I locked myself in my bedroom with these it was early like Gemini turntables and a mixer that had like an extra like tough fader. So like I had to get real strong fingers to move the fader. It was like I needed WD-40 to make it slide a little bit more, then the WD-40 would wear out and it got rough again and my fingers would hurt. I think I had arthritis by like 15 in my fingers. But the other thing was, I didn't come from a lot of money, but I came from a lot of support and love. And my dad would sit there, late night watching me do this thing, like trying to learn how to scratch. He had no idea what I was doing, but he was very supportive, and I think appreciated that I was enterprising and passionate about something. I think as a parent, that's, you want your kids to be things. I was putting my all into it. I was really like practicing hard. And I had that little thing in my back of my head, like all my friends think I'm going to suck. So wait till I come out of the lab. And 2 years later, I kind of had figured it out. I started doing clubs. I was making mixtapes. I got good at it. I took a lot of pride in it. I was really competitive. And yeah, by not that long after, I was working with different artists and I became Jennifer Lopez's DJ, like in her band. And I don't say that to brag, but that was a
big moment.
That was a cool accomplishment because 14 years old, the feedback was, you're never going to be good at this. And it was like, no, I worked my ass off to get good at it. So, yeah, that was a lot of work and perseverance, commitment,
And then you had another entrepreneurial venture before you started Acorns, right? It was an agency you were running?
No, so my first thing, like senior year in college, I partnered up with someone and wrote a business plan for like what would be the first one-stop shop for hip hop, which obviously given what I told you about my background, I was 7 years old listening to Fear of a Black Planet on my headphones in the backseat of my parents' 240 DL Volvo. Fight the power. That was my shit. And so I loved hip hop culture, though I also respected that I was an outsider in a lot of ways, and so I respected inside and outside. I loved it and appreciated it. I never tried to pretend like I was something I wasn't, but I wanted to provide access to these things that you only got if you were in New York City, maybe LA, Chicago, San Francisco, like the major markets at the time. So DJ culture, vinyl, fashion, we started doing all that. And that was my first experience, raising a little money, building a thing, hiring some people. That was like I call it like my MBA on the streets. And that was really a great thing to do right after college, right out. I went to college, like so many people were going into banking and this and that. And I was like, it wasn't like the thing to do then to start your own thing. It was just back to how I grew up and my mother, and, it was sort of born out of necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? And that led me to, I co-founded a creative agency. We started in music. We were helping record labels, like when they were figuring out how to break into new markets, like online was starting to happen, street marketing, all this stuff. And the agency caught the attention of some big brands because we were doing some new things. And so we signed some big brands and then turned it into this, like a pretty, product development and marketing agency that helped companies large and small connect with young adults. That was kind of our niche. So we worked with everyone from Intel, GE, and Chase to Facebook, Spotify, University of California, Vice. It was like all over the map. We probably built 200 products, 200 marketing campaigns.
And how old are you at this time?
Starting at 25. 25, then at like 27 started a music agency. So I had creative agency and music agency sort of was born out of the brand agency where we realized that most companies would only license like multi-million dollar songs, like big hit songs from companies. And we thought, like, why don't brands create their own hit songs? So we started this agency to sign a lot of the top music producers to create original commercial hits for brands. So we signed like Babyface and, Quincy Jones and all these guys to do brand soundtracks. Kind of along that path, I was spending a lot of time with these companies that were always talking about cool and wanting to be cool and creating this cool thing, like make this thing cool and this. And probably the 20th time I heard it, I was like, this is like fascinating. I don't know, this is like, I was a psych major in college. So this is like fascinating consumer psychology. And I started down a path of writing a book called Chasing Cool, because that was what I saw all these companies doing. It was like chasing cool to stand out. Mm-hmm. And I think the message of the book was, you can't look in someone else's backyard if you really want to stand out. You got to look inside and follow your passion and your gut.
So let me ask about that experience for a little bit, right? And kind of similar path. I actually never worked for anybody. I've only, since I graduated college, basically been self-employed in different ventures. It's only when somebody buys a company that I start that I work for them. But obviously you were doing something, like there was something that you were doing differently at 25 and 27 to be in a position to, get these clients, Fortune 500s. I'm of the point of view that these skills aren't innate, that they're mostly learned. If someone has a desire, they can achieve, virtually anything they put their mind to. That said, like, what do you think, and this is where you got to not be humble, which I know you're very humble. Like, what were you doing differently? Like, what did you put into play in those early years that helped you have that kind of success that, your peers weren't? Like, how did you achieve that? And if someone says, well, I want to be doing that, when I'm in my early 20s, how could they follow your lead there?
I feel like these things are said a lot, because it's not like there's some magic, right? Or secret sauce. It's really hard work, determination, focus, competitive spirit, passion. Like, definitely when you're passionate about something and you allow it to show, that's important. If you're passionate and you allow it to show, that isn't infectious, it's magnetic. It brings people into your thing, makes people believe when it's authentic. Mm-hmm. So, and people can't, by the way, people don't always have the luxury to do the things that they're passionate about. I mean, a lot of, just being real, right? A lot of people have to put food on the table for their family and may not have that choice. Even then, I still say, like, man, late at night before you go to bed, what do you start thinking about it? Start writing, start creating, start producing, start reaching out to people. But when you have something you're passionate about and you pursue it and you make that your focal point and you let that passion you have seep out of your pores because you feel deeply and it's authentic, mm-hmm. People buy into that. And I don't just mean investors or whatever. I think people broadly buy into it. I think consumers buy. I think when you feel something, you can breathe something to life, That's right. Like, you can breathe something to life. So.
And so how did this early hip hop star and agency and writer of the book about cool, like, here you are, as you said, helping millions of people make very boring decisions about just securing their financial future? Like, how did that transition happen? And how do you think about your place in the world with maybe what some people might consider a less cool mission, but something I consider to be like pretty amazing work that you and your team are doing.
I define cool as doing what is authentic to you. To me, that's cool. So I don't think cool is like, it has to have some music or fashion or culture or whatever. Cool is like being your true authentic self. And that to me is, so I don't think Acorns is any less cool than DJing for Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah. So,
in fact, I would argue that if what you do impacts people in a really positive way, that's the cool, that's the pinnacle of cool, right? Cool might need a rebranding. Miles Davis was probably the coolest person, you know, maybe arguably the coolest person of all time. By the way, a little thing about Miles Davis, and this is a good, people think they need to talk loudly to be heard. Actually, when you talk softly, people lean in. It's better to have people lean in than to feel like you need to broadcast your presence and take over the room. I'll give you the story about like how Acorn, how that happened, because there is actually a lot of narrative back to like the beginning for me, right? Like essentially, I wrote at a certain point that my purpose, my professional purpose, is to level the playing field. And I don't mean like I'm some person that's going to single-handedly level the playing field. Like, it's not like, it's, you know, it's not some megalomaniacal thing. It's like, I believe that that is a noble purpose. And I feel like that's what I should spend my time professionally doing. All the way back to as a kid, like I grew up around these sort of two different worlds constantly in parallel, sort of back and forth. Like by day, I was a public school kid. I grew up around kids that didn't have a lot of money. And then at night, I was a competitive tennis player and I played tennis with the wealthiest kids in Manhattan. So there was that interesting dichotomy that I saw, you know, talk about the playing field. Like I saw the two fields, you know, and then in high school, it flipped. I ended up going to private high school and I started DJing hip hop nightclubs. And that was a big through line in my life, like seeing these different fields, you know. I toured across America. I saw not every, but I saw so many places in America. I saw how so many people live on a bus, you know, travel across the country on a bus, like staying in these towns and cities and places and seeing, you know, most people from the major cities don't really see America that way. So I got to see that. My father was in banking, but he was in the philanthropy side of banking. My dad was a Peace Corps guy who ended up working in community development in the bank. So he invested the bank's money into philanthropic endeavors. So I sort of, and ironically, grew up around this, like, there's banking and then there's like doing good in the banking world, but that was born out of the Community Reinvestment Act, which required the banks to give their money philanthropically. So here was my dad doing this stuff. My dad was like he's alive. He's a very ethical guy. And so I grew up around that. And then one summer, and I think he loved this because I was a stubborn motherfucker, excuse my language. I was a bank teller at NatWest Bank for 3 months. And I worked alongside single mothers, 3-4 kids, making $8 an hour every day, going to lunch. I worked my ass off for 3 months doing that. And, you know, serving customers. By the way, I got promoted to customer service manager, like in that time. But I took so much pride. I felt like when I was talking to these people, there's a lot of pain in money and shame in money, you know? And you could see that, you could feel that. There's a lot of, it's a very, very emotional subject, right? And the gap in this country is widening, man. Fast forward to when I had my agency, we got hired by Chase to become more relevant to students. How does Chase become more relevant to students? Now, the reigning model was give kids credit cards Kids are graduating with $20,000 in credit card debt. So we came up with this concept called Chase Plus One, which was the first student credit card to reward responsibility rather than spending. Because spending is the culprit, overspending is the culprit. This is like the American way, you know, overspending, spending, get those Nikes, get those Jordans, get this, get that, comparison, blah, blah, whatever. But this was earn points when you pay your bill off on time, earn points when you pay your bill off on time 6 months in a row, earn points when you pass a credit education quiz, all this. This was back in 2006, right? So this is before the whole fintech financial wellness thing happened. And I got a taste for doing something good in this space, but I got a taste for it from inside the belly of the beast because we were doing it for a big bank. No disrespect to Chase, but it was, and big banks are not today set up to serve the everyday customer. They're just not. Too many fees, too many, it's that there's more about the mass affluent market where you can make more money and fine, you know, but everyday Americans like need a financial institution and a financial partner that really looks after their financial best interests. I could see from that point, you got to build something from the ground up for everyday people. The products, right? The simplicity, the pricing model, the business model, the brand, the authenticity, the accessibility, all those things. I look at banking, the way I describe banking is it's one big drop-down menu of options. And most people have no idea what to choose, when, why. So our vision, and I love this, I talk about passion. I feel really passionate. I know this is right. Our vision is to build a financial wellness system that helps everyday Americans save and invest every day. Mm-hmm. And that means saving and investing money is the beginning of the relationship, the middle of the relationship, the end of the relationship. It's the through line. Financial wellness system means every product we add to Acorns should help you maximize your saving and investing. Super, right? Super simple, super clear, not a drop-down menu of options, a system that helps you save and invest more money for the future. By the way, my girlfriend's about to come in and our dog is going to start going crazy. So I'm going to mute for 1 second.
Well, for those of you Walt know is doing this that may not be using Acorns yet, it's an absolutely amazing, magical product. Whether you are already an active investor or you're looking to get into investing, I would definitely encourage you going and downloading Acorns and opening up an account.
Sorry, Jason.
No, I just gave a little plug for you while you were on mute. All right, so I want to talk like what I think a lot of people know like the key things about Acorns. Like what's one of your favorite parts of the product today that maybe not lots of people know about? You know, like every founder, you know, is obsessed with their own product. It's like an extra kid of yours. You know, I can tell you every part of Comparably that probably most people in the company have no idea even exists. What are those things in Acorns to you that are just so unique and special that maybe like the typical user may not know about?
By the way, that's a great question. I'll tell you two things that I love about the product. One is we have this screen called the potential screen, and it's really this beautiful graph that articulates the power of compounding, which is like Warren Buffett called it the eighth wonder of the world, because it is. Compounding is just basically that if you invest your money over time, your money gains interest, the money you invest after the money that gained interest grows on top of the money that gained interest, and so it compounds, right? So this screen shows, based on the things you're doing with Acorns, like how your money can grow over the next 10, 20, 40 years. And that's what investing is all about. If you keep it in cash, high yield savings accounts, by the way, that's a high yield savings account is a marketing gimmick, because of course the yield fluctuates with interest rates and things like this. So when you see those like 2%, 3%, like that goes away. Investing has beaten inflation 80% of the time. So it's this beautiful force that most people in this country haven't had access to. And I think that's part of why the wealth gap is so big, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that screen because it demonstrates the power of compounding. And if you put $5 a day, and by the way, one of our customers yelled at me once for saying $5 a day. He wrote me a note and he said, why do you think everybody could do $5 a day? I think he called me obnoxious. Rightfully so, because not everybody can do $5 a day. But whatever you can do it, and do it with the highest degree of frequency you can. Because the more frequently you contribute, you could do it by the day, the week, the month, whatever you can do. The more frequently you contribute and the earlier you start, the more your money will grow over time. If you just put it in, let it sit there, and don't touch it. And by the way, news is set up to cause you to panic and make bad decisions when there's market volatility. I mean, it's literally set up to do that. So do not, when the news is saying the world is coming to an end and the markets are going to crash and this, that, and the other, by the way, that may be true. Turn away, turn the TV on, put on some fucking classical music, whatever you have to do, take a shower, take a hot shower, have a conversation with a loved one, distract yourself, stick with it. Because every downturn in history has ended in an upturn. And the more you remember that, the more you will create a better, and invest your money regularly, frequently, and as early as possible, the more you will create a better life for yourself and your kids. That is as much a fact as a fact can be. So I love that screen. And I also love our product Acorns Early, because it is the easiest way to save and invest for your kids. Like, hands down, it's the easiest way. And the difference between, if you started saving $5, and no disrespect to the customer who gave me a hard time about $5 a day, I don't mean to disrespect. This is not meant as to say $5 a day is achievable for everybody, but I'm just going to use it for illustratively. If you can do $5 a day starting at 18 and you stay committed to 65, based on historical return rates, you will have $1 to $1.5 million. Okay? If you start at birth, so if you put $5 a day in your kid's account, starting at birth, $5 a day, by their retirement at 65, you will have $4.5 million. Now, it's not a guarantee, right? But based on all historical context, that's what you will have. And if there's anything to take away from this and to remember, it is, man, start as early as possible, contribute as frequently and as much as you can, stick with it. Do not pull your money out when the market tanks. Do not pull your money out when the market tanks. I'll tell you a story, and I don't say, well, I'll keep it like high level, but I was with my girlfriend on March 18th in our place on the West Coast, not the East Coast. We were on the West Coast. And that was the day that I think the market the Dow went to 18,500. By the way, it's above 30,000 right now. That was the day, I think, that the market went to 18,500. And I didn't know if it was going to go worse or where, but I knew 18,500, man, it had been 28,000. That was a big drop. 40%, I don't know, 35%, right? 40%. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I invested so much money at that moment. And she was looking at me like I was insane. And it's hard to put yourself back in that position about how terrifying it was when the pandemic hit, the market crashed, the world was coming to an end. 2008, same thing. 2001, same thing. 93, same thing. It happens every 8 years. The world is coming to an end. It's never going to come back. This is it. I'm going to get in my bunker, get my guns. I'm done. And I put so much money in and I never took it out. And the Dow's at 30,000 right now. So, like I said, And I'm not trying to suggest to anybody to time the market, but put your money in, keep it in, do it regularly, and don't look back.
What do you feel like? So obviously you had access to, build the product and do marketing through your agency and the resources you had there. Lots of people build really good products that don't always get, market traction. What did you do to get 100,000 users of Acorns, right? Like what was the magic that you did between the combination of product and marketing, and how did you get that early viral growth? And did it not go straight up into the right? Like, did you have some starts and stops, and what did you figure out along the way?
The early Acorns like strategy was create a wait list. It's a powerful strategy. Create a wait list for something salient. Market it, tell people there's a wait list for it, tell people it's coming, deliver obviously when you launch it, but wait list is strategy is good. Like it taps into this basic desire that people have to get something they can't get access to at the moment. Like one of our basic psychological tendencies is to want what we can't have. I would recommend for anybody seriously thinking about creating anything to study psychology, because things may change generation to generation. Obviously, last generation came up on technology, things like that. But the basic human psychological tendencies we have, those have been pretty consistent,
Mm-hmm.
People want to feel loved. People want to be accepted. People want to be acknowledged. People want what they can't have. Unfortunately, people compare themselves to other people. People have fear.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot, right? Those are all basic. So if you think about how to create something, I would always come back to basic psychological tendencies. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, that's why behavioral economics is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a great book, Predictably Irrational, that I always helped me a lot in business, that I loved a lot.
The Psychology of Money is a good book too. But The Intelligent Investor is the best book on investing, right? And basically that's just, don't be a dummy, which means like, buy values, buy things on a value basis, but also like don't get swayed
mm-hmm.
by emotion.
Yeah. All right. So, how many employees do you have today at Acorns?
We're close to 300.
All right. So close to 300, growing quickly, have 8 million users. I think it's out there publicly, raised, $250 million. So I want to dive into some of the big lessons you've learned. So let's do the time machine exercise. And we talked about some of this. I thought, your thoughts on this were really beautiful. If you could take a time machine back into your 20s and you could give that Noah any piece of advice, what advice are you giving him and why?
So we did an offsite where our wonderful leadership coach gave us the assignment to write a short commencement speech to our younger self, which I thought was a beautiful assignment. And, it flowed out of me. I don't know, like, by the way, if you get a chance, anybody, whatever, like, it's a cool thing I sat down and I imagined myself on my couch sitting next to myself when I was young, and I wrote it. I'm a visual person, but I love to write and I love words. And I wrote it. I basically just wrote it almost like a script in the, and it just came out. And then I actually wrote it down, and it wrote itself. It was called Unfinished Work. And the message was, if there's one thing you can remember, it is that you will always be unfinished work. You will never have arrived. You will never be complete. You will always be unfinished. And if you can remember that, and if you remember that the process is the prize, you will lead a much happier life. You will feel much more fulfilled. And you will accomplish more things. So my message to my younger self is that you'll always be unfinished work. And you know, I like I said, it wrote itself. By the way, I think when anything's right, I think this is something I've realized. When anything's right, it sort of writes itself. You know, it has a little bit of a tendency to write itself or design itself or build itself, code itself, whatever, right? It just sort of comes out of you because it is part of you, and that is the truth, your truth. Like when you're trying to do something, it's different.
Yeah, you struck a chord there. So in my last company, I was running this venture-backed business I started when I was 27, and about 4 years in, I was just totally burnt out. And I think one of the qualities that successful folks have is delayed gratification. They can push off, something that they want in the present for something bigger they want down the line. But I think a lot of us take that too far. And the truth of the matter is I was burnt out. I was unhappy. My life was completely out of whack. And I had told myself really at some level, like I was only going to be happy like when this company sold and it was a success or we went public or whatever. And we had a good outcome. We sold the company, Intuit bought it. But I remember I took my first ever break in vacation about 4 years in, and I was in Israel, and I just asked myself the question, how do I want to feel when that event eventually happens? And then I asked myself a follow-up question, which is, well, can I give myself permission to feel some of that now before that actual outcome is there? And to me, you talk about this, like enjoying the process. It's like, I think, everything we do in life is for a feeling. And sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking, well, that certain things have to happen in our life before we're allowed to experience that feeling. And if we just give ourselves permission to feel the way we'd want to when we're hoping for an eventuality or an outcome, not only are we happier along the way, but it probably increases the likelihood that we're going to get to that eventuality or hard outcome anyway.
I think that's right. That's well said.
All right. So let's fast forward a little bit. How many years into Acorns are you now?
We launched at the end of 14. So okay. 6 years.
Yeah, 6-year journey. If you could go back at any point in your Acorns journey so far, and you could give yourself any either professional or personal advice, what's that going to be and why?
It's from that great Ann Landers quote, "This too will pass."
I love that.
Yeah. We get so caught up in like whatever, but this too will pass. The lows, the highs, it will all pass, so take it slow. Take it slow.
Love that.
I will give one other.
Yeah.
This is a piece of advice somebody gave me recently, and I will always take it with me. Run your own race.
To be fair, you said it a little different the first time you told me, and I thought it was even more emphatic.
I said, run your own fucking race, but I know, people are sensitive to curses, so I try to edit myself sometimes, but run your own race. Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
It means that comparison is the death of joy. And it also means have your own vision, pursue your own path, go your own way, leave a trail, but don't look right and left all the time. I mean, for whoever's, I think like my mom, so by the way, when I was going back to, my mother always told me never go into business. She said it'll suck the soul out of you. So many questions you get are about the competition, right? What keeps you up at night? Who are you worried about? What do you think about the competition? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? How about, what's your plan? How are you going to change the world and make a dent with your vision? Look back, look forward. Don't look right, don't look left. Like, and by the way, like you're not going to be particularly good at copying somebody else. I guess some people have been good at copying, but that's not fun. Anyway, it's boring.
So I want to dive into your management style a little bit. You've led people for a long time now at lots of different organizations. Obviously, got a big growing team here at Acorns. I think the thing that you self-identified about yourself that comes true, like you're going to speak your mind, like how you see it, you're going to call it. So how would you describe your management style today, and where have you evolved? Like, where in some cases are you as transparent as you've ever been, where in some cases are you maybe more thoughtful and hold back what you say? And how would your team describe you as a manager?
Probably passionate. Like I don't fall back on it, but it is what I am. I'm passionate. I'm passionate about what I do. I'm emotional about it. I hate the phrase, it's not personal, it's business. Give me a break. Everything's personal. If it's just business, like what is that? You know what I mean? Like, what is that? So I'm passionate. I'm emotional. I feel, I express my emotions. I express how I feel. Maybe sometimes I could do with a little more stoicism, but like, I don't know. I wasn't born for, I'm not good at stoicism. So I'm not trying to run I'm not trying to run a strategy on you. Like this, like you get what you get, what you see is what you get. But passion, I would say trying to inspire other people to move past all previous thresholds of possibility. Like that is something that I feel if I can help someone move past previous thresholds of possibility, do the ups and the downs, the moments where we get along, the moments where you want to slap me or whatever. I feel that that's good. Like if you feel inspired to move past your previous thresholds of possibility. And as a manager, by the way, I've come to really appreciate principles and frameworks. I think these are good. I think as a manager, if you give people a voice and a path, you've done a pretty good job. Give people a voice. People want to bring their authentic self to work. They want to feel heard. They want to be able to speak their mind. Those things. And a path, like people want to know where they're going. Like we all want to know where we're going. So if give them a voice, give them a path. And finally, just like a kind of basic one, but I don't know, man, put in the time. Managing people is just, it's time and care. Like you just got to put in the time, be there for people, listen. It's pretty rare that I miss a one-on-one with somebody. If I do, something's wrong with me. And I care about people. I do. I believe I probably push people too much sometimes, but I really care about people and I believe in people's potential. Mm-hmm. By the way, that is at the root of Acorns. Remember what I called that screen that I love, the potential screen. Like I believe in people's potential.
how many direct reports do you have today?
10. I think according to
And so,
Harvard, it's like 3 or 4 too many.
yeah. All right. So one of the things that's a hard journey for all of us is that we start off and we know every single thing that's going on in our company, right? And we're often the sources of knowledge for everybody else. And then it gets to a point where like everyone else knows all these things, and we're relying on all these key folks to make decisions and the folks underneath them to make decisions and so on and so forth. So, obviously you can tell like you are passionate about Acorns, like as much as any founder's ever been about their business, which means you're probably going to want to know so much about what's going on. How do you think about today creating a framework for people to make decisions and empower them? And what's the transition been like from you to go from this place of where you knew everything about the product and business to where all these things are happening every single day that, you're not involved in any of those decisions?
I think it just comes back to hiring really smart people. And like, I'm always reminded of that Steve Jobs, like, you don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. Mm-hmm. Even when your inclination might be to tell someone what to do. But my goal is to hire people who will tell me what to do for sure. Like I'm inspired when I learn and grow from the people that are on my team. So
who's one of the people that you've hired either at Acorns or a previous company that you learned the most from? So someone that you hired maybe reported to you, but you ended up learning really valuable lessons from.
It's like, it's hard to say one person because, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people, but Frances, who I think might be on this phone call, she helps, she helps me with the things where like patience and maybe reactivity and things like that. Like I feel like she's a person who I work with who just helps me react more effectively. Because it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. So I learned a lot from her about patience. And going all the way back to my childhood, I used to always hear more patience, more patience, more patience. So she's been really great that way. She's my chief of staff. She works with me on everything, and she just helps, so that's been really powerful.
Awesome. Well, you have this incredible social community of followers, and I know you put out some questions to them, and there were two in particular that they really wanted to hear from you. So this comes directly from the Acorn social community. The first is, how do you generate new ideas?
Idea generation is all about synthesis. Synthesis is all about inputs and inspiration. So books, people, art, film, everything, customers, team, interns, chiefs, every interaction is an input and an opportunity to learn something, and something that could end up being the seed of a transformative idea, which, by the way, is why you should listen to everybody. Because that little nugget of an idea or insight can come from anywhere. I mean, you should listen to everybody out of respect, but if you need a business reason.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the second question I love that, by the way. Totally agree. Second question is, What do you think the best side hustle for learning about entrepreneurship is?
I saw that one. That's an easy one. The best side hustle for learning about entrepreneurship is to start making what you want to make as your side hustle. And so back to the, like, I don't care, man. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and you've got a bunch of kids and a big family and you're the breadwinner and you got to support, at the end of the night, it's 12 o'clock, whatever time you go to bed. I don't know, man. Stay up another hour, start working on that plan, write it down, whatever you have to do. The best side hustle for starting something is to start it on the side.
Mm-hmm. All right. Obviously, what we focus on all day long is how to build, amazing company cultures. Here's your own feedback on Comparably. It's incredible. I think in the past you won one of our awards for, best ranked companies and best CEO for women. So, I always say, like, it's easy for any business to have, a goodish culture when they're successful, because winning and success cures a lot of sins. Obviously you've had a lot of success, but you're doing a lot of things right. Like, how do you focus on building a great company culture? And, what are some examples of what you try to do, and the things you focus on who you hire to keep that culture growing?
Values, like we have 5 core values, lead with heart, make bold decisions, always build trust, never stop growing, and find a way. And that's got to be the foundation. So I would say, how you hire, how you manage, all those things, you think about your core values and you map back to those things, right?
Mm-hmm. Love that. All right, so I want to get I'm going to ask you a couple questions here, and we're going to do a little bit of a lightning round while we got some more time. I think so much of what you're doing is, helping people advance in their professional life and in their financial life, right? And so obviously a lot of people who are listening today are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs. They're trying to come up in their own careers. Maybe they're executives on a fast-growing venture-backed team. And so if you were speaking to a group of folks that were trying to come up in their career, what would be Noah's like handbook? What would be like your 5 golden rules of how to keep just being as successful in your career as possible?
Do what makes you come alive. Stay curious. Work hard. Be humble. And remember that this too shall pass.
Love those 5. All right, so I want to ask you about either something that you consider to be like a mistake that you learned from, or something you evolved on. And I'll tell you one that I'm personally going through right now. I think that I've always tried to hold to the paradigm of praise in public and give constructive feedback in private. I think one of the things even till today that I miss, and I think that is actually magnified because of the remote environment we're in and working on virtual meetings and Zooms, is really just how much I think feedback from like a founder or CEO can mean. And even when they're good intentions, like not all feedback should be given at all times. And one of the things like I'm trying to work on is knowing when and how to give people feedback that will get them to maximize their own potential and hopefully also, meet and exceed our company goals. I can say that I'm probably a lot better today than I was 10 years ago, and not nearly as good as hopefully I'll be 10 years from today, and that's a big learning process for me. And, there are times like I've got to hold back on giving feedback that I may feel very strongly is going to help somebody, but they may just not be at the moment right then to receive that feedback. And it's a hard thing as a leader, because it's like, well, I'm busy. I'm not going to have time to deal with this later. Like, I know this is the right course of action, but it doesn't make a difference if, as you said, if someone's left with the feeling that's counter to the end goal that we're trying to achieve, it doesn't make any difference. So that's an example for me. So again, going back to you, what's a big mistake you made, or something you really evolved on how you think of yourself as a leader, or how you try to run a team?
By the way, I'm pausing because, so many mistakes. You kind of pretty much on a daily basis, right? You're making mistakes. And I think back to the staying curious, humble, staying open, like I'm always trying to learn and grow from the things that happen. So I think, I'm pretty psychologically attuned to it, but I think the individualization is so important. Like like you can't overestimate how critical it is to understand each mode, method of receiving feedback, the best way to inspire each, best way to demotivate each person, and to come to grips with the fact that like each person receives things differently. And to understand that part of your responsibility as a manager is to put in that time to individualize. I'm a New Yorker, I can come hard. That works for some people. For some people, that causes them to freeze up. And somebody on my team gave me feedback early on in our relationship. She said, "Man, you come hard. Like I know you're not being mean, but you just come super direct." And I'm a New Yorker, so I come super direct. But for this person, that didn't work. That didn't cause this person to have the best reaction. That didn't bring out the best in this person. That made this person recoil. So I learned from that. And now I know, okay, with this person, I need to, and then by the way, then you build trust. And now, by the way, with this person, I can be a New Yorker. Because you have the trust, you have that understanding. We grew, and now the person knows the intention's right. The style's a little different than the person's used to. But I also always remember, hey, this person might not respond so well to the super hard, come hard, So I think it's really important to take the time to understand each person's specific mode, frame of reference, Myers-Briggs. By the way, that Myers-Briggs score goes a long way. Mm-hmm. I'm an INFJ.
I'm an EJ.
You're a classic CEO. I'm a doctor.
Yeah. Good to know. All right. So one or two more questions before we wrap up. What's your vision of Acorns for the future? If we look out, 5 years from today, what does that Acorns business look like? And what are you most passionate and excited about growing the company today into in the future?
Our vision is to build a financial wellness system that enables everyday Americans to save and invest every day. So I would like to see 100 million everyday Americans saving and investing every day. That would be an awesome outcome. And in a phrase, I'd like to get people addicted to saving. That would be a good addiction. So
I love that. Well, we started off this interview talking about what made you passionate. And I think this mission that you got is pretty incredible. And we also talked a bunch about, what makes somebody cool, man. I got to tell you, every interaction I have with you, I leave thinking that's a cool guy, because I think you're true to who you are. You say things like you see them. I think you're really curious and are always trying to figure out the world around you. And what really stands out is that you try to bring people in on the things that you're learning. And I think the mission that you have and how you're helping a lot of folks. And I think really one thing that's forgotten is this is a really hard time for a lot of people. And there are a lot of us running and working in venture-backed businesses, and it doesn't feel like the world has fallen off a cliff. But, I read the stat, this morning, that 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and a bunch of millennials that never, felt that way before. And, at the end of the day, helping millions of people have financial freedom and helping them make better financial decisions and helping them make the same kinds of, decisions that folks that have had lots of success are. That's a pretty amazing mission. And there's a lot of us that are cheering you on and supporting you, and excited to see all you're doing in the world. And thank you for spending even more time today giving back and sharing your story to so many folks as well.
thanks, Jason. Same to you, man. I really appreciate you having me on and appreciate you as a person too. So thanks, man.
All right, for everyone that's been coming to all our sessions, thank you so much. We have an amazing set of guests coming up, including the CEO of Zoom that's going to be joining us for an upcoming session. And stay safe, stay sane, enjoy the holidays. And Noah, thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom and passion with people today. And for those of you that have not already downloaded or signed up or tried Acorns, it's a magical product and experience. I love it. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. And so amazing job to you and your team and all the great work.
Thank you, Jason. Same to you, man. Take care. Be well.
Bye.